Will be interesting. So the other guy, though, he could also be in the mix, and people have talked about him going to the Dolphins. People have talked about him going to the Chargers. You want to talk now about Mr. Justin Herbert out of Oregon, the quarterback.
Yeah, see, I thought I'd do Justin Herbert because Eric's not a fan, and he's a Chargers fan, and he doesn't want to see him go there. But I will say, when you start watching the tape, before we even get into him, there is a little bit of a fit there. Like, wow, I should say the way the Chargers used to play, like with Phillip Rivers, like throwing the ball deep, a lot of play action. Well, sorry, when I say play action, it's really the pistol, and they're going. What do you call? What did they do in college? The pistol, and then there's a quarterback option. There it is, the option. I knew it would come out eventually, but yeah, like it just. So you start watching them a little bit, and they like to go deep a lot. So it's not like you can't get it out totally quick right away. So he's holding on to the ball. We'll say, I like to say 5 Mississippis or tugboats or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, so here we go with Justin Herbert. First thing, he's 6'6", 237. So he's a tall mother beaver, which I love. He's a senior. This is another thing I talked about before. So he's got lots of snaps. I love it. Helps you develop. You see more defenses. Gives the quarterback a little bit more time. When you play longer, you see more things. You can read coverages better. Like Patrick Mahomes come out and said, was it last year that he come out and said that like this first year he couldn't even read half the field.
He couldn't read a defense.
By the end of it, he could read, or towards the next season he could read everything or close to everything.
Which that just shows you how much coaches matter in this league, right?
Oh, it matters. It's a different league. It's faster. NFL's big ball, boy, like big boy ball. They call it.
And everyone says, well, Patrick Mahomes would be good anywhere, but would he? Right? Like if he had went to say the Cardinals and that terrible offensive line they had, a couple years ago, and they don't have, they have the coach they had there, not Cliff Kingsbury now. Obviously, maybe he'd be able to do something with them, but they had the old coach, right? Does he come out, if they say, like, look, we think you might want to do this, if they don't have a coach to really coach him up, does he become what he is? So, you hope that wherever Justin Herbert goes, they kind of want to put in a plan to work with him. And that's what you want for any quarterback, no matter who's getting drafted, right?
Did you watch any tape on Herbert? I was just curious.
Yeah, so I have.
What'd you think?
Not right before this. Not super impressed. Obviously, if you just look
I'm gonna change your mind.
Well, obviously, if you just look at highlights, and with all these guys, I stopped watching. A couple years back, it's always good to watch the highlights just to see what you like about the guy, right? See if you really like
what
this
he does good. Yeah,
what he does good. But anybody can take, if you want to take 10 top plays of any player, any player will look good, right? They're guys that are projected to go in the first, second, third round of the NFL draft. They're not a slouch. They're not you and I.
Exactly. They're not the average Joe out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Hoping not to pull their hammy.
Exactly. So they're gonna have something that obviously at some point made them look like, look, this guy's gonna be worth taking a shot at. For me, a lot of it was just, and he's a multi-sport athlete. That's good to see. It's good to see that he's kind of come up. I actually listened to a couple podcasts and interviews and stuff with him, and like I said, a lot of people just say, look, the guy's a leader. He works hard out there. A lot of stuff you want to hear. I just don't know.
He's not your favorite.
At the next level, does he become, and I guess he had a good year, but does he become a Daniel Jones? And I wasn't, I don't think anybody was super excited about Daniel Jones last year. Same as somebody like Mitch Trubisky.
You know what though?
Is it somebody you're just taking a reach at?
Daniel Jones, okay. I didn't want to. I thought maybe that was a reach. He really showed me something last year, and I think they got something to build on there.
I do too.
I really
but
like
it's one of those things.
He's mobile, he's accurate, and he's got a cannon of an arm, and he does a pretty good job.
And I think Justin Herbert, it's all about value, right? So for me as a Chargers fan, and because this guy's been kind of linked to either, and it's because it's the teams that need a quarterback, right? So
exactly.
Throughout the year, it was the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Chargers. That is the teams that you kind of constantly see all this stuff with. And like you said, obvious. I've seen him, quoted to the Jaguars. I've seen him quoted to you guys if he falls all the way down there.
Listen, If New England takes this boy, I'm gonna be happy, and I'm gonna get into
Yeah,
some reasons why.
but at 23 or whatever you guys are, 20 whatever.
23. No, you're right. 23. Yep,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So, with you guys, if you're picking him up at that point, that makes sense because you're down far enough that it's like, okay, it's not even just so much best player available. It's just where I guess it is kind of best player available, right? Like at number 5 or 6.
Didn't it when Aaron Rodgers dropped down the board? Didn't that work out for the Packers?
And it does, right? But Aaron Rodgers was also supposed to be like one of the better quarterbacks in the draft.
We can even go. We can also say that about Big Ben.
Yeah,
he fell down the board. He was towards the end of the first round, I believe, right, with the Steelers.
Yeah, because they thought he was going to go.
Well.
They thought he was going to go to the Giants or
the Giants really liked him and liked Eli.
So a lot of this goes in. I said I think he's a decent prospect. I just don't want to see my team, which is the Chargers, and if you guys listen to this and then they take him in 2 weeks, then you know that I'm probably crying. At this point, I would have been crying for a couple hours, but I just don't see the value at 6th overall for it to be, that's the guy you want to take to start your franchise around. I think there's just better players.
Well,
I just think there's better players. I'd rather take a guard or a tackle or Isaiah Simmons, something like that at the top. I think you get more value for the place. But I understand quarterback trumps everything.
If you think it's coming from a New England fan here, if you think he's the franchise guy, you've got to fucking take him.
Yep.
Like New England just had a quarterback for 2 decades, and they did nothing but win titles in their division. You know what I mean? Like they just dominated football.
And they had to make the decision, right?
Now, quote unquote, Tommy, it wasn't all Tommy. The first, let's say, 3 years.
Yeah.
Especially the first 2.
Your first Super Bowl.
Forget this, but the second year, New England or Tom Brady was really the first year he came in as starter. So the second year after they won the Super Bowl, they did not make the playoffs. People forget that. They went 9-7. Anyways, it was after that he really his third year or second year as a starter that he really took off. And that's what people forget. But the only point I'm going to make to you, Eric, I totally agree with you. But I'm just saying, I understand why. So let's take him. If you really believe this guy is the guy, and I said let's even 10 years, right? And 10 really good years. And when I say 10 years, I'm talking you guys are in the playoffs, got to be in the playoffs 8 of them. 9 of them, right? Let's say there's an injury or whatever. Maybe he doesn't play all 10 years. But you know what I mean? And I mean highly competitive. You guys are highly competitive with it.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying if you're the GM.
And that's your guy.
But, it's got to be a group decision.
So
if you're the head coach and I'm your GM and you're like, Trevor, I want this guy, and I say to you, Eric, I don't like him, and you give me a hard time, and I say, fuck it, we'll take it. We'll take a bet on your guy, and, but if me and you come to a conclusion, and other guys, it's a group committee thing, and we all like him,
yeah.
Well, you got to take him.
And it's that's the thing.
But I know what you mean.
And like I said,
would you rather trade down, but will he be there?
See, I like I said, it's. I think if he goes past the Chargers, there's a chance that he drops to the 20s. If nobody else,
I'd love to take him. There's a lot of teams that don't need quarterbacks. That's the thing.
That's the thing, right? You have either guys that are, and trust me, there's a lot of teams that actually need quarterbacks, right? Whether they think so or not, but there's a lot of teams that are kind of stuck in that middle ground, right? Would he be a good pick for the Raiders? And obviously Raider fans are going to say no.
I'm still waiting for the Miami Dolphins to cut Rosen.
Yeah.
Callie Rosen. I love Callie Rosen.
It's not Callie Rosen. Callie Rosen's a defenseman for the Leafs.
I'm sorry.
You mean Josh Rosen.
Yes, Josh Rosen. I'm sorry. I'm just really excited. I just think he didn't get a fair kick at the can.
I'm playing a season of Madden right now, and I traded for Josh Rosen.
I love him.
And anyways, he's my starting quarterback, and I just won a Super Bowl with him. So let's just put
there
that.
You go.
But
right, let's get back at
it. So what is it that you saw from Justin Herbert on tape that you liked?
All right, so he's in shotgun a lot, or he's in pistol. Okay, that comes out at you right away.
And that's kind of typical for college, right?
It is. So the first thing that jumps out is the guy 6'6", like I said, 237 pounds. He's an athlete. He's deceivingly quick. By this, I mean, like, he could take off, he can run with the ball. So this kind of new era with these quarterbacks like Mahomes, Lamar, like these guys that can just create themselves some time or take off with it and get a first down. Excuse me, Josh Allen. So I really like this. Okay. So what I noticed with him, he'll roll out of trouble. Let's say he'll roll out one side of the pocket or the other, and he'll throw and hit a receiver, and he'll be accurate. Okay. But the best part about this, which a lot of people aren't going to like, is his feet when he's out of the pocket on the scramble. He never sets his feet. But the surprising thing is he always seems to be accurate for the most part. And by that, I mean like 75% of the time. If you go watch him on tape and he's on the run and he rolls out and it's not by design, that's exactly what I mean. It's not by design. He does not get his feet set. He's either thrown off his back foot or he's disoriented or his shoulder, he's all torqued every way. So I was impressed by that. So, he's got a decent arm. I'm not going to say great arm.
No, but he's got the intangibles, right? Like he's got
exactly.
He's got a good arm.
You know what I mean? Like you got to have a pretty good arm when you're not set and stepping into a throw, and you make it with ease. Another thing, so a little bit of a knock. Like I said, I didn't see enough of him underneath the center. So if you're bringing him in and you're underneath the center, your team that's under, like, so the Pats, the Chargers do it some. Anyways, the Rams, if you're not underneath the center all the time, so he's going to have to get reps that way. I'm not quite sure what he is that way, you know what I mean, with his feet work.
Yeah.
Like I also said, the Oregon Ducks like to push the ball downfield, so he holds on to it. He seems to read the field really well. At the Columbine, he got a bad knock. They were saying things like he seems to be trying to accurately put the ball or force the ball in places. Like, when you watch the Columbine, people, if you did or if you didn't, that is true. Like sometimes you could see he was uncomfortable. He was trying. He didn't know those receivers.
But it's also hard
when he's playing for his own boys. Like he's playing with Oregon guys, he knows. He's outstanding. He's really accurate, and first of all, I didn't think he was that accurate.
The throwing mechanics are one thing that you can never. I guess that's what the Combine's for. You want to just. It's not so much the accuracy. You want to just see, how he throws, his throwing motions, his release points.
It's important, though. Can we not agree in the NFL?
100%. But you're also throwing against air, right? So you don't have to worry about coverages. You don't have to worry about rushing. So that's where it comes back. And like I said, that we'll say this a million times, from now until forever, that you got to watch the games because you got to see how they were, react. So one of the issues I had with them is that, in some of the biggest games this year, they go play Wisconsin, which they're a good team, and they won the game. They won 20-27, but he went 14 for 20 for 138 yards and an interception, no TDs. He did rush 9 times for 29 yards and 3 TDs. So, he did have, he obviously did score some, rushing touchdowns. That's where he got the... People don't realize he's actually really good running the ball. He's not, like I said, it's a quarterback option. They do it a lot there. And he does a really good job of it. So I think that really transpires really good in the NFL because that is because you got to be able to get out of a lot of teams now are using that to kind of mask some offensive line issues, which you're going to find offensive line issues no matter where you play. But I said even against Utah, and this was more of a bigger game where they kind of won by a bit, but he went 14 for 26 for 193 yards and only 1 touchdown. And, didn't add really anything on the ground, 7 for 20. So he wasn't really, rushing for a whole lot of yards. So it's one of those things.
Well, he does let's be realistic though. He does like to throw from the pocket.
Yeah. But it's just one of those things. You'd want to see a little more out of him. Like I said, his last 3 games, he went for, like I said, 138 in the Rose Bowl. The big Pac-12 championship, it was 193. And the Pac-12, it's the weaker of the divisions. I kind of, it's
that's
not
up for debate.
Well, it's not the SEC. That's, I don't care who it is, but the defenses are better in the SEC, I think. And then
your opinion.
And then they played Oregon State, and he went for 174 yards and 1 TD. Right, so he put up good numbers against Arizona State, and like Arizona and Arizona State, he put up 300 yards against both of them. But he also threw 2 for 2 for two TDs and 2 interceptions against Arizona State. In Arizona, he had 4 touchdowns. So that was his kind of big game, for the year. But I think he's good. I think he's a good prospect, and I think he should be the 3rd quarterback off the board. Some people are talking about Jordan Love. I don't see it. I see the splash plays like.
You don't like Love?
I like Love, but I find it's like you really like you wouldn't be able to take. Maybe they do, right? Because we've thought nobody's taken Trubisky this high. Nobody's taken Daniel Jones.
Nobody took Holmes.
Nobody's taken a lot of these guys this high. But
I will say this, man. I watched Trubisky quite a bit that year. He was like almost like a 1-year starter, and I couldn't believe that they took him. They traded up to get him. Like he has a crazy arm and stuff, but he was never in college. He was never that accurate, and I found he was actually a little bit better in the NFL when he came than I thought he would be. But whatever, I still haven't given up on him.
No,
Who knows with the Bears?
That's good though. Like I said, I'm glad you went with Herbert. Like I said, I don't hate him. I think he's, like I said, the 3rd best. Yeah, but it's not even that I dislike him. It's that I dislike him at 6th overall. That's the issue.
I just see so many things that I like. Like I said, when you don't have to set your feet and you're running out of the pocket for your life.
Yeah.
And you hit a strike, I like that. He also has the ability, the tape shows us, he hits guys on their back shoulder for touchdowns or big yard gainage, like where the defender can't get at it.
Yeah.
A lot of guys in the pardon my French, in the NFL can't even do that. Like Tom Brady, yes, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning. These guys did it and made a living at it. And Drew Brees, I want to throw Brees out there because Brees is amazing. But so there's just a lot really to like. He seems to, if there's pressure up the middle, he's deceiving in the pocket, like not like Tom Brady, but he can shift around. He doesn't have to take off running for his life. So he seems to got good awareness that way, and hit a strike. He's looking downfield for the most part, which I really enjoy too. Like Eric touched on, he had 6 interceptions this year, but in college that's a pretty damn good year. He had 32 passing touchdowns. What else did he need to work on? Like when he was running, I kind of found he should tuck the ball away a little bit more. I was a little concerned about that.
Yeah, no, he didn't have a terrible year. Like I said, it's just there's a lot of little stuff that he just, like I said, and I think you get him at the end of the 1st round. I think it's a good deal. I think anybody's lucky to have him at that point. Like I said, for me, the only issue I really have is the placement of him going that early. So, but
another thing that really stood out too is he led his receivers very well. I found. I'm glad I noticed this in my notes. So he like when they went on about the accuracy, I really had a problem with that because when you go look at the tape, he was very accurate. Like, so I know, like I said, he was bad at the Columbine, but like me and Eric just said, when you don't know your guys, those guys well, and there had to be some nerves in that as well. When you go look at the tape, man, he's deadly accurate. A lot of times when the receiver catches the ball, he's off for another 10 yards or 5 yards. He hits them in stride. You don't see that a lot. The odd pass is thrown behind the receiver, which I also really liked. Throws a deep, like his timing routes and stuff, they seem to be bang on for the most part. The odd pass, the very odd pass, you don't see it often. Like I said, he'll be behind his receiver. But I was so impressed because I figured there'd be a lot more inconsistency that way. And like I said, it really jumps out at you. He throws to a spot. Oh, and another thing that was, like, when it comes to the spot and stuff, he also, when you're throwing to the end zone and the guy's covered, he did a good job throwing it lower so his receiver could only make the play or the back shoulder, like I said before. This all jumps out at me. Lot to like. But like I said to Eric and you guys earlier, he's running out of the pocket, doesn't set his feet. That can be concerning because the NFL, you can't rely on your arm like that.
No, guys are too quick.
He tries to make a play throwing across his body and across the field, which in the NFL, it's not going to happen, boy. It's going to be an INT every time.
Like I said, I think everyone just has to, like I said,
more to like. He seems intelligent. He seems to make the better plays. Another thing I didn't see enough of is the kind of like what do you call that? Audible. So that's hard to judge, but like I think, but I do like what I see.
Yeah.
I think he's a great prospect. He's an elite prospect. I understand why he's in the top 5. I think the right coach gets their hands on them, they're going to be very happy. This is another guy. I think he's really good, and if you have to start him right away, you can. but I think you're hurting him too. Like,
like you said, I think
get to know the offense. Really
I think
good.
that's why he kind of fits that into the first round. Hopefully, you don't just start him in the first year and go from there. Like I said, because I think it's Burrow's
a
one.
lot to like, though.
Yeah, but like I said, that's why they're these prospects.
And I like I said, I can't stress this enough. He started for 4 years, and I really like that. Because if you go in the NFL right away and you're not starting right away, you still got to hand up on some guys because they're coming out in their second or third year.
Yeah, because they're younger.
Especially for quarterback. If you only played 1 year, and he started at least 3 years there for sure.
Yeah.
So
no, he's
seasoned somewhat.
No, he started 4 years. He threw for, almost 2,000, almost 2,000, 3,000, and then this past year was his biggest year. He put up 3,400 yards, almost 3,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So, like I said, he did well, but it's just like I said, wait and see. Like I said,
I was impressed though. Led his receivers like that jumped out at me.
Yeah,
a lot of.
I think it's like I said for me. I think like I said, the talk just has to stop about him going ahead of Burrows or Tua. Like I said, I understand the injury concerns for Tua, but. I said,
really,
just,
you know why I'd give Tua the edge, and this is just personally
because he's electric.
Yes, he's electric, obviously, but Tua, he's just done it. Like, okay, so for Tua, he comes in a national championship game in the final, and he comes in and tears it up. They were down big, and he tore it up, and you didn't even know they were down. It looked like he came out and started the game. So he's a gamer. I don't, and Herbert has lost some big games. But, you can't put that on one guy. No. He hasn't looked bad in those games.
It's a team game, right? So
it's hard to judge a guy. But, like, if you're, Tua also what works in Tua's favor is people don't talk about enough is he throws with the left hand.
Yeah.
And you don't see that too often, and that throws defense off big time.
Yeah. So one of the things